Welcome to the Lifeline, a production of Simply BJE. The goal of this podcast is to build, inspire, and to empower our listeners through conversations on business, leadership, and mental health. We invite you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at www.simplybje.com/The Lifeline. Now, let's tune in for today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of The Lifeline, where real brothers having real conversations about real life. I'm Barry J. Elliott, joined by Lindsberg Petway II, Bo Powell, and Stephen Coleman. Today, as we continue our focus on Men's Health Awareness Month, we welcome University Physician at North Carolina A&T State University and Chief Medical Officer at Kindred Hospital, Greensboro, Dr. Brian Shackleford. Our goal is to inform men without creating fear while encouraging them to take ownership of their health. Dr. Brian Shackleford, good morning, sir. How are you today?
Good morning, sir. Awesome. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak.
Thank you for joining us, man. We're excited about this conversation. So the first question I want to ask you today, from a physician's perspective, what are the biggest health challenges facing men today?
So if I could summarize everything, because I like to try to summarize everything for simplicity into one thing.
Okay.
The one thing that I would say that men, especially African American men, struggle with in regards to their health is one, just showing up. I hate to use the term recidivism because, it possesses a level of criminality, but our recidivism rate in regards to going to the doctor is horrible. It is horrible. It's one of those things where even when I was in private practice, like the panel of patients I had are usually females in the Black community. It's not Black men. I believe that we have been programmed since slavery, if I can be real this morning, since slavery to be workhorses, to, place more and more stress upon ourselves. Our brawn and our work is what we focus on and not the well-being of our bodies. So before we even get into what problems ail, the majority of the problems that do ail African American men are the same that ail African American communities. Your hypertension, your kidney disease, your diabetes, detection of cancer later. Obviously, prostate cancer only in men, but it is one of those things where a lot of this can be prevented if we, as men, show up and do the work early. There's something I usually love to say. We take more care of our cars than we do our bodies as men.
That's real.
And
That's
it's
true.
it's crazy, but if you look at a high performance car, I mean, I've never had a Lamborghini, but I know that the maintenance schedule on a Lambo is pretty intense. You have to take that car in and you're making sure that every part is, well taken care of and well serviced, because if it breaks down, that son of a gun is extremely expensive to repair. So I like to look at the body the same way. If you're not putting it on a maintenance schedule, when something goes awry, it's pretty costly to repair, whether that's workforce time, whether that's, time away from family, sickness, early death, things of the sort. We act like our bodies are 18-wheel trucks, putting crude oil in it instead of acting like it's the Lamborghini or the, precious creation God made.
Wow. So when you think about the healthiest men that you've cared for throughout your career, what habits, what mindsets, and what behaviors do they consistently have in common?
So the healthiest men that I've encountered first understand that they are a three-part being.
Mhm.
So it is one of those things that they're taking care of their bodies, they're taking care of their minds as well as their spirits, because studies are even showing there's a synergism behind, that body mind or that soulish realm aspect. They take the body and the mind and the soul into account, honestly. They focus on all three parts, so they understand that there is a connection between the three. You can't have a healthy body without having a healthy mind. And the
Yeah.
reason I say that is if you are burnt out, if your mind is not in a healthy place, you're not going to have the willpower to continue to do the things to make sure that your body stays intact. So they prioritize, there's this huge term, self-care, but there is self-care that men need to do, whether that self-care is reflection, whether that self-care is therapy, whether that self-care is also spiritual wellness and, a relationship with, I believe in Jesus, but whatever deity you so choose, because I don't want to discriminate. It's Jesus for me, though.
Jesus
For
for
me
me
and my
too, buddy.
house,
It's
for
always
me and
Jesus
my
for
Jesus.
house, we shall serve the Lord.
me. Yeah. Yes,
One
Because
God.
sir.
That
Yeah.
one, hey, say that again, Linsberg, one
They
name.
got
But that level of ability to understand that the burden and that his burden is light, that yoke is easy and actually understand what that means. Being able to cast that care to him, knowing that even though you've casted that care, you may need to have talk therapy to be able to actualize and to have working plans on how do I get through this. And then from a physical standpoint, the body is made up of muscles. You got to work those muscles. So consistent workout plans. American Heart Association says we need to be doing 150 minutes of cardio a week. That cardio is not a light walk. That cardio is something that makes the heart rate go up, something that actually makes you do some stringent level of activity.
Wow,
150
good.
minutes.
That's
Wow, I
good.
didn't know that. Okay. 150 minutes. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need,
Half
I need to pick up my
hour.
game. I need to pick up my
That's
game.
2.5
I can't
hours a week,
stand
man.
cardio, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's about 15 to 20 minutes every workout and just some stream. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doc, we live in a society where people respect receipts. So we're not just going to run over that you are a chief medical officer. What does that mean to our people out there? What is a chief medical officer?
Okay, so the easiest way, everyone here is like chief executive officer. They
Yeah.
understand like CEO. Some people may know CFOs like chief financial officer. So the easiest way for me to say it, I call myself like chief of staff. So there's hospitalists and other physicians that are credentialed at the hospital that I work at. I am technically over the medical executive committee for that hospital. So all the governance for the physicians, I have a role in. All the credentialing for them, I have a role in. I hate to say the discipline for them, I also have a role in.
Say it.
Policy and procedure for the hospital, I have a role in. The infection control joint commission stuff, I have a role in. So
Yeah. So
Yeah.
everybody heard that, right? So this man knows what he's talking about. And not only that, he's leading others. So a lot of men only go to the doctor when it hurts. What are some preventative health care strategies? And what does that really mean? So men, listen to what he's saying, because this guy knows what he's talking about. He's an expert. What should we be doing to prevent some of these issues that we're having as men?
That's a great point, great question. The beautiful part, and I say beautiful because it's a dichotomy of the body, is when things start to hurt for the most part, it's too late. Hypertension is known as a silent killer. It hurts when you're about to die.
Wow.
Wow.
There's usually not a huge warning. If you have an aneurysm, that's hypertension in your brain where it's called a thunderclap headache, it's too late. By the time you have that thunderclap, if you're not close to a hospital, the good Lord is pretty much, sending the chariot for you. In regards to kidney disease, when it starts to hurt, you're usually too close to dialysis,
Wow.
So the body gives us the ability, like you were speaking on in the question, to prevent. So it's one of those things where after, pediatrician and we get out, we leave mama and we go about ourselves. We usually don't see the doc until it's too late, till we're short of breath, until certain things don't work the way they used to work. We need to stop doing that. So I'm not a family physician, but the family practitioners, family medicine actually says that from 20 to 30, you can go every 3 years if all your numbers, your blood work, your comprehensive metabolic profile, your complete blood count, things of that sort are good. Usually through 20 and 30, you're making sure that you don't have any predisposing issues from family history. Like if you have a family history of certain cancers, family history of diabetes, hypertension, which is high blood pressure, high cholesterol, things of that sort, screening's a little bit more intense. But that first kind of 20s to 30s, making sure every 3 years your blood pressure is normal, that your labs look good. It's a time that if you are having, or I'm not even just having, if you are sexually active, that you're sexually healthy. That's something that we don't screen enough as Black men. If you're sexually active, that gonorrhea, chlamydia needs to be tested. You need to be tested for HIV, you need to be tested for syphilis, also need to be tested for hepatitis B and hepatitis C. So that's what you're doing in your 20s and 30s. When we get a little bit more experience, late 30s, early 40s, that's when we start to make sure that our kind of metabolic issues and hormonal issues are looking good. So that's when we start looking at, hey, what's my hemoglobin A1C? What's my diabetes profile look like? Is it less than 6.3? Is it less than 5.7? If it's 5.7 to 6.3, that's prediabetes. 6.4 and above is diabetes. What do I need to do? What dietary changes do I need to make? Then we start looking for screening for colon cancer, which is something I know we all know Chadwick Boseman and, what ended up happening with him. I personally have had a friend whose father passed early from colon cancer. It's one of those things we don't like the screening. The screening technically is something that's taboo because, colonoscopy, what are they going to do? They're going to take this, they're going to put this where the devil is a lie. No. But it's one of those things that we see in our community. We need to get screened before our white brothers get screened because incidence rates are higher. And when we do get detected, we're detected in later stages where if we were detected when it was a polyp, remove the polyp, do surveillance screening instead of, oh my goodness, you have metastatic colon cancer. I can get you some chemo. Let's pray that this works long enough for you to be able to see your child down the aisle or your child graduate. So it's a little different strategy. American College of Gastroenterology says at 40, we need to start getting that colonoscopy. 40.
Wow.
So I will say, if you aren't high risk, and this is something that I love to be able to talk about, you can actually get a Cologuard or a fit test, which is you send your stool off, and every 1 to 3 years, you'll have to, if normal, send more stool because it looks at the actual DNA in the stool to see if you have high risk or cancer cells that they can detect. So there's multiple ways to get screened, but in your 40s, we're talking about screening.
Yeah.
At 50, we're looking at something different. 50 is when we start looking at that prostate. If you don't have a history of prostate cancer at 50, it's just like, hey, we need to start looking at your prostate levels. And I say levels because there's a misconception. I don't need to put my finger in your rectum to check your prostate. We have prostate surface antigen. It's a blood test. I can check that blood test. If the numbers look okay, you're good. If the numbers are a little bit off, then we need to have this conversation. Hey, this could be because of what we call benign prostatic hyperplasia. Your prostate could be a little bit larger, or, it could be something else. And to make sure what it is, I want to send you to a different type of doctor. I want to send you to a urologist to make sure that everything is good. Okay. But that's that level of screening and that's that level of relationship with patients that I feel we need to start having. The USPTF, which is United States Preventative Task Force, they say that prostate screening is a class C recommendation. Pretty much class C is not strongly recommended. It's a conversation with your patient. For African Americans, it's recommended. And the reason why it's recommended, in medical school, I had a professor tell me that white people will die with prostate cancer. Black men would die from it.
From it, yeah.
Wow.
So what that ends up meaning is if you're getting your screenings, okay, cool. Your prostate looks a little interesting. We'll be able to monitor and serially monitor your PSA until it gets to a point we need to act up on it. If we're not getting that, when we start to, I can't pee anymore, I'm having some erectile issues, why are these joint pains happening? And you find out you have metastatic prostate cancer in your bone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, for my black men, it's not a no, we're gonna talk about this. I recommend it. We'll act on what we need to. Maybe I'm a little biased. My father actually was diagnosed and passed with prostate cancer not too long ago. So it's one of those things. It's in the forefront. I don't want to have that bias, but there's too many black men that have the same experience.
My condolences.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah. I share the same sentiments that you had. I guess maybe because I grew up with a mom and 4 sisters, I seen people go to the doctor regularly. So I was always the one, if I felt something was happening, I got checked normally, quickly. But my grandfather did die from prostate cancer, so that always was in my mind. So I started getting checked very early. And just to be transparent, I had to go see a urologist because of the history and because I was having some concerns. You come to find out there's nothing there, but they didn't have to use the finger. No finger. They did. They took the blood test. But just to be transparent, based upon him dying, if I had to get the finger to prevent my life from, leaving here early, then that's what you got to do. You know what I mean? So I just say to the brothers, definitely go get that checked out if it's in your family's history.
Yeah, I was on a panel with Phil Ford, who was speaking on his experience with prostate cancer, UNC legend, Phil Ford. And the same thing, he was just like, PSA was up, and it was one of those things he had to go and he had to get the finger, but they caught it early enough where they were able to act on it. No metastases. He's great.
Yeah.
He feels as though it was like an intervention that saved his life. That as interesting as it may seem in our brains to have that experience, if it's needed to keep us here for our loved ones, if it's needed to keep us in what I love to say, here in purpose, right? Because if our purpose on earth isn't complete, then what are we doing? Right. So if it takes that finger, that medical screening to make sure that we're able to do what God's put us on the earth to do, as uncomfortable as it might be mentally, I'm gonna take it 10 times out of 10.
Definitely.
We talk about prostate, Brian, and talk to us. What is the prostate? What purpose does it have? Why is this such an important conversation?
All right. So yeah, the prostate, it is an organ that only men have, right? So what ends up happening in the prostate is we are making special. If we're gonna go there today, the prostate helps. The prostate helps with.
Come on, let's go.
So the prostate helps make our semen, right? So it's one of those things, seminal fluid, prostatic fluid, kind of converge, made by the prostate, will end up going into your vas deferens and allow to mix with the sperm to actually have, semen be produced when we ejaculate. It's one of those things where there are a lot of nerve endings and blood vessels that end up coursing through. Which is why, in full transparency, prostatectomy or the removal of the prostate or radical prostatectomy sometimes leads you with inability to get erections and will also leave you with I'm not going to say urinary dribbling, but it will leave with weaker streams because you have those nerve endings that course through there that actually what we call innervate or work in your penis to allow erections, allow the functionality of the penis for what it is. It's dual purpose. Obviously, we utilize it for urination, make sure our stream is strong, but also that son of a gun is used for recreational purposes and procreation as well. So it's one of those, hey, if we're going to go there, we're going to go there.
Let's go
It's
there.
one of those things, part of preventative health.
Yeah.
In America, it's a little bit different. I was speaking to one of my friends who just got back from Africa, and he had the ability and the fortune to actually talk to some of like tribal kings in Africa. They're 80s and 90s. I mean, in certain aspects, practicing polygamy, but I say this, they're 80s and 90s with no erectile issues with multiple wives.
Wow.
And in the United States, conversely, I've had men in their 20s come in and say, I can't get it up the way I used to. What's the difference? Could it be preventative? Could it be, and if we're going there, do they eat cleaner? Do they not have the same level of hormones in the food? Are they making sure that they eat certain things and supplements that promote nitric oxide all throughout the body, which is good for, your muscles? Or is it some of those social aspects? Are they not drinking the same way? Are they not taking, marijuana and other illicit substances? Could it be something else? And this is more that soulish aspect. Are they not, watching all the porn? Are they not trying to have these mental aspects that are, this doesn't hit what I saw, so I don't get the same dopamine response and my body doesn't respond to it? But there ain't no way that an 85-year-old man is going 3-4 times back to back in a day, and I got brothers 20, 30
Wow.
who are just
Wow.
like, I can't please my woman the same way. Like, what?
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
So just to be clear, because I wanted to put that out there to really give brothers a reason. Like you said, a lot of times before we started the show, we just don't go to the hospital, right? And so, but one thing I know brothers are going to focus on when it comes to, getting it off, right? And so that's
Yeah.
why this is important, your prostate, because I had ran into a gentleman, this was some years back, on the way to the job, man, and he was telling me he had prostate cancer. And that was one of the things he talked about. He says, man, I couldn't get it up, stuff like that. And so I realized how important prostate awareness was. And so brothers, women, get your men to the hospital. That's a very important part of relationships, a part of our life, is to be able to have that intimacy. So I really want to make sure we went there, Dr. Brian, so, we can really start to get people to start going to the hospital. And if for nothing else, to get those colonoscopies, to get that prostate checked out. But I wanted to talk about, because you spoke to something earlier about the inequities, as it relates to whites and blacks when it comes to healthcare. And you said that, whites can die with prostate cancer, blacks, we die from it. Why is that the case? How can you kind of clarify why there's this differentiation between, cultures or races when it comes to prostate cancer?
So I chuckle not out of it being funny. I actually chuckle out of a sense of frustration.
Yeah.
Um, because if you look, and it's one of those things for me that goes back eons, generations. Anytime that we think about healthcare, African Americans are one leery of healthcare.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, all I have to do is say Tuskegee,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's still in the heads of this generation. I'm 37. I mean, that's something my grandmother was talking about. That's not too far removed from Tuskegee, right? Where we were studied on, not studied for, or not, incorporated in studies to make sure we had better outcomes, but we were inoculated and exposed to syphilis just to see what the heck it ended up doing. So the white people would be able to have some sort of knowledge base and some sort of cure, right? So if you were, and excuse my French, if you were bastardized in that regard, and you've had your civil service pillage, and I do use these words, strongly and on purpose, but if you've been pillaged by the same people who are now saying, let me keep you from passing, that doesn't strike well, and it doesn't resonate in the soul. I mean, you'd be a fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, what? Shame on me. So it's one of those things, we've been fooled enough times where we're starting to not have that level of trust. And I saw it in COVID, right? I had the opportunity to work with Old North State Medical Society, which is the Black Medical Society for North Carolina, with COVID, just to do education and, screening and testing. And one of the biggest things that I would hear when I would go in our communities, especially by some of our senior saints, I don't trust this. This is the government trying to take us out. This population control. I heard one elderly female told me they couldn't do it with Tuskegee, but they're going to do it with this.
Wow.
So if they still have that, and by they, the older population have that in their mind, and we are a culture where things are passed generation to generation. So if these epithets are passed down, I mean, my mom knows, I know, like I'll train my son what happened, just because if you don't remember the future, God forbid it repeat itself. But there has to be a level of accountability in Black physicians, Black practitioners, to try to demystify,
Yeah.
right? So I say all that, and I hope I didn't have an ADHD ramble. I say all that to say there's not
good, though. Oh,
representation
that's great.
in regards to us taking care of us, because I have had more success than my white colleagues had in our community because I'm a face that looks like us. I've had the same experiences. I'm able to bring it from a perspective of, no, we're in the trenches together. I'm not out in, the little Hummer coming by and leaving. No, this is my community, right? The other thing that ends up needing to happen is not only that representation, But like I said, the demystification behind the access to healthcare. One, we don't trust it. Two, we don't have the access. If you look at the majority of our communities, they're in food deserts. If you're in a food desert, you're also going to be likely in a physician desert. And the reason why overhead is not going to be the same, you're not going to have patient populations be able to get to your offices. The infrastructure for transportation doesn't allow you to have the transportation to get to the physician or your primary care. You also may or may not have good insurance. And the way that some medical game is, and I hate to say it is a game in certain regards.
We appreciate you for joining us this morning, Dr. Shackleford. Man, can't wait to get you back on. Man, you may even become like a regular guest. Talk about health. I can just see that, man. Because I know you have a lot to share, and it's really much needed in our community. But to our guest, today's conversation reminds us that good health doesn't happen by accident. It happens through intentional choices made day after day. Men's Health Awareness Month is a reminder that taking care of yourself is not selfish. It's one of the most important responsibilities that you have. This concludes another episode of The Lifeline with your host, Barry J. Elliott, Lindsberg Petway, Stephen Coleman, and yours truly, Bo Powell, and our special guest, Dr. Brian Shackleford. And we're on a mission to bring light and life into the places people don't always talk about. So stay with us, join the conversation, and give us your feedback. We want to hear from you because The Lifeline exists to speak life into your life. Y'all take care.
Thank you for listening to today's episode with host, business expert, and life coach Bo Powell, social media influencer and entrepreneur Lindsberg Petway, and leadership coach and mental health advocate Barry J. Elliott. Join us next week for another impactful conversation on The Lifeline. God bless.